Brough Scott's 70-year love affair with horses has involved a riding and broadcasting career, coupled with becoming one of the most respected journalists of his generation. As if that wasn't enough, he's been both chairman and trustee of the Injured Jockeys Fund for over 40 years. It's been a long and eventful road from a childhood not readily associated with rural equine surroundings.
We lived in post-war London. We're talking about the 40s. Horses were around, but they were around on the walls of the house, because my father had been a considerable rider before and ridden in pointy-points and things. And they were around in those days with the Royal Mail carts and the milk floats and everything else. So there were horses about. And I was a little bit of a nerdy kid, and rather than doing cricket scores, we had a magazine of the sort of best horses of the year. And so I knew a lot about sort of 1940s, 50s horses. And then one day, my father took me to Brighton races to see Gordon Richard ride a winner. And what I remember is we went there, and Gordon Richards was the smallest and oldest man in the paddock. But he also seemed to be much the most important. It was extraordinary. You see, he was a small man, but he was really important. And he duly rode a winner in his extraordinary way. In Coronation Week, I was a little boy in the rain, waving a flag in the Mall, standing on a stand somewhere. On the Saturday, my parents had a picnic at Tattenham Corner, and the big deal was the Queen had a fancied runner called Oriole, flashy chestnut, the white face and the white noseband, and Gordon Richards was riding Pinzer. He duly won, but I remember the Queen's horse flashing at the outside. And the Queen, the young Queen who'd been in the carriage, the idea that there she was with a horse would nearly win the Derby, and of course we always thought she'd win the Derby soon. So that was my background and the hook that got me.
An Oxford education reading history was also combined with enjoying the thrill of race riding in point-to-points and later in amateur races.
My last year at Oxford, I had 80 rides in public or something, you know, and I'd riding winners there, and it was all getting out of control. And I then went full-time, and the last year as an amateur, I had 200 rides. Eventually, the chance to turn professional came, and Brough has a lasting memory of his first winner and the effect it had. My first winner was a 33-to-1 shot and made all the running at Lingfield. And my father got frightfully excited and ran down the Lingfield lawn, screaming, "He's won it, he's won it, he's won it." Success followed, and he eventually caught the eye as a TV regular, albeit in the saddle.
10 gets behind Berners Gastina, with a change of rider, Brough Scott riding Gastina instead of Dick Pittman.
I then rode my 100th winner at Ludlow, and 2 days later I was in front at the second last at Warwick and turned over and went to hospital in the ambulance with a piece of wood in my teeth. 3 days later I'm lying in a hospital bed, and they've got a phone beside it, and it rings, and it is the most famous voice in racing.
Saying, "Hello, Peter here."
And he'd found out, and he wrote a very sympathetic piece. So, as you can appreciate, I've been grateful to Peter O'Sullivan for a very, very long time. 1970 World Cup was on, and suddenly I had to realise I'm not going to ride forever, and what else am I going to do? But then I watched the TV that summer, and the ITV team had a panel, and the panel had ex-footballers on and current footballers who talked in footballing terms. And when I watched the racing TV, they were very perfectly good, but they weren't ex-riders or anything. They were just perfectly good chaps who'd ridden out hunting and stuff. And they didn't have the argot. So I rang up Julian Wilson, who I knew quite well, and said, look, at least I could do that bit. I had that perfect thing for a year till I got to learn how to do it, really. If you can't be good, be different.
By now, Brough was also forging a career as a racing journalist, well known by many of the sport's leading figures. If required, there were always former weighing room colleagues on hand to offer advice.
I didn't say incompetent.
No, you said read thin, which you won't be able to say this time.
I did not.
No, you were very nice, but you
I
did.
did not.
You
I
said,
don't make statements like that.
No, you said.
That's not one of mine.
No, you didn't say incompetent. You said.
Budding.
Yeah, budding, but only just beginning to bud. Has a lot to learn.
ITV contacted me after I'd done about 4 or 5 broadcasts for the BBC and said, would I come and talk to them. And they asked me what I thought of the ITV racing team. Well, of course, I got one shot, really. I said they needed me.
In Ireland for us is Brough Scott, and his day began with an early look at the leading fancies.
Yes, Dickie, this is the scene at the Curragh stables early this morning.
Brough's sports articles gained him a great reputation for his many publications. Foremost among them were leading horses, jockeys, trainers and owners. Some of them subsequent winners of the Peter O'Sullivan Award.
Well, I'm thrilled and delighted to be given this award. I never thought something like this would happen to me.
It's very nice.
It's very grateful.
Thank you.
The Queen Mother was mad on jumping, but she was patron of the India Jockeys Fund. And once a year, once every 2 years, we used to have a private lunch with the Queen Mother, which I might tell you was not teetotal and didn't end at 2 o'clock. It was good fun. It was a wonderful exchange once. We had a lunch at the Garrick Club. We somehow get on to the subject of Australia. John actually said, "Oh, have you been to Australia, ma'am?" And she said, "I was Queen there for 20 years." I went down a mine and to Buckingham Palace in the same week. And at both places, it was very easy conversation because the people there knew that I knew that they shared my enthusiasm. Well, Vincent O'Brien has to be the greatest trainer who ever lived. 3 champion hurdles running, 3 Gold Cups running, 3 Grand Nationals running with different horses. Then switched to the flat and won everything there. And of course then, very, very lucky when he linked up with Leicester. They became a partnership which is probably the most magical partnership in the history of flat racing. Of course, the ultimate peak was 1970 with Nijinsky.
And racing up towards the line, it's a miss for Lester Biggett. Nijinsky's gone clear. Lester Biggett looks over his shoulder. Blakeney's making ground on him, but Lester's just letting him canter. What a horse this is, he's trotted up.
Lester Piggott was the most dominant and the most freakishly brilliant. Talent is being able to do things that other people can aspire to. But genius is to do things the others can't even think of.
Racing into the final furlong in the Gold Cup, and Ardross is stretching well. He's going to win it well, and hard-held Ardross wins the Gold Cup from Sugarline second.
And then there was Mill Reef, chronicled by Brough in a memorable feature film after his Arc de Triomphe victory.
It's Mill Reef from Pistol Packer. Gambritzia is coming there strongly, but it's Mill Reef holding Pistol Packer. Gambritzia coming there on the line, but at the line, Mill Reef's the winner. Pistol Packer second, Gambritzia third.
The next year, the great showdown is Brigadier Gerard versus Mill Reef, race of the century, which is all billed. They're determined to do it. Of course, we had the disaster, he broke his leg. The recovery, we were allowed to film, and then we had one of the most evocative scenes I've ever luckily been involved with shooting, which is when Mill Reef comes out for the first time and walks around carrying his leg, and we had music on it. And it was very, very moving for me because, you know, we were trying to make this film work for people. It got me locked into, you know, a great racehorse. I mean, to see Mill Reef walk around the yard, when he cantered, he moved better than any horse I've ever seen. Arkle was another dimension. It was almost as if he was another species, and perhaps he was. I mean, he got incredibly knowy. He had this very high head carriage with long ears. He used to walk around the paddock, looking around. I'll never forget, you know, we couldn't believe that Millhouse could be beaten like that, and this horse was clearly superior.
Again, but it's Arkle on the stand side, Millhouse over on the far side, coming up towards the line. This is the champion. This is the best we've seen for a long time. Arkle is the winner of the Gold Cup. Millhouse is second.
I was so fond and in awe of Peter, one of the greatest commentators of all time in any sport.
And it's Grundy going on from Bastino and Daniel on my way. Bastino's finding his way back, but Grundy's holding him as they come to the line. Grundy wins it, Bastino second, Daniel third.
It's a thoroughbred racehorse, bred to do this, putting its neck out, trying to beat the other one.
Enable near side, Crystal Ocean will not give in. They go head to head, toe to toe. She's just in front of Enable, and she'll win a second, King George. What a race! That was a horse race.
This simple act of trying to run fast the other, this beautiful creature, which after all is Britain's greatest gift to the animal kingdom.
It's Monksfield on the near side, Seapitter on the far side. Monksfield is just surging ahead. He's going to win it. It's Wayward Lad, the veteran, trying to break his jump of Hoodoo, being pressed now by Dawn Run in the
coolest racing race in jump racing you ever see is John Frankham riding Sea Pigeon. Coolest bit of race riding you'll ever see.
It's the old man, Sea Pigeon, coming to take it up, and he's going to win it as they come up towards the line. Sea Pigeon wins the champion hurdle. Sea Pigeon has just won it from Pollardstown and Durning Run. You've never heard such cheers from the crowd.
In 2017, Brough returned to our screens on ITV, a full 46 years after his first appearance on the channel.
They just wanted me to come and do the old uncle act. Well, to some extent, I'm the only man who remembers Arkle. So, and when I appeared, somebody said on Twitter or whatever it was, said, "Crikey, what have they done now? They brought Brough Scott out of the deep freeze."
Last month, Brough marked 41 years association with the Injured Jockeys Fund. He stepped down as trustee, but not before overseeing the opening of Peter O'Sullivan House in Newmarket.
You know, I think it's something that Peter would be very proud of. I got to know him in his later years of life. He was an amazing man, but I think this centre is something that he would be very proud of.
It's a shame that this year Brough Scott's going to stand down, but he's been a pioneer and ambassador for the Injured Jockeys Fund for many years, and he's going to leave a great legacy.
Yeah, it's marvellous, really. You know, this is what Peter always wanted.
He's made a massive contribution to racing and the whole industry. He writes so eloquently on the subject, and you know he understands it from his heart. And he totally gets the spirit of everything that we do in racing. He represents the very best of our whole way of life in the sport of horse racing.
Brough Scott and Lord Oaksey, the two guys in my life that will always be right up there as the #1 pair.
We've benefited from some truly amazing men, you know, like John Oaksey, like Jack Berry and Brough Scott. You know, they've given their life to the sport and to this charity, and without them it would never have got to the level or got to where it is at the moment. You know, it's something that they should be very proud of.
And an unbelievable honour for him. I don't think he was much of a good rider, but an amazing rider.
He's always offered a unique perspective on those associated with our great sport. And I think I speak for all of his current colleagues when I say he's a delight to work with, and it's impossible not to get swept up with him and his infectious enthusiasm and love for the game.
His knowledge is unbelievable. He knows races, you know, going back through the years. For racing, you know, he's done an amazing amount of good work and unnoticed sometimes, but a truly remarkable gentleman.
What he's done for the sport is second to none, and he really deserves this award, and I'm sure he'll be a happy man on the day.
This year's winner of the Peter O'Sullivan Award is Brough Scott.